The following podcast is being brought to you by the Defy Life Podcast Network.
Welcome to Aftergate, powered by the Defy Life Network.
Are y'all ready?
Aftergate is a podcast series highlighting Colgate Alumni of Color in their professional endeavors aftergate.
Are y'all ready?
Aftergate is hosted by Alvin Glimpf, aka Al, and Herman Dubois, aka Jerry.
Are y'all ready?
We are doing Aftergate because Colgate University has produced innovators who have changed the world every day, yet many alumni of color and the mainstream Colgate community are unaware of the amazing accomplishments of alums of color.
Are y'all ready? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to another episode of Aftergate Season 2. This, as always, is your boy Alvin Glimpf, and it is awesome to be here. And I'm with my co-host, Mr. Herman, aka Jerry Dubois. How are you doing, my brother?
Hermano, what is good?
Yes, sir.
Life is good. Life is good right now. Looking forward to this upcoming school year. Got a lot on the horizon, but closed out the year with the Dubois clan and the MIA. So it was nice to have family down and be with everybody at one time in one space. So I'm feeling blessed. I'm 18 years in Miami, and first time I have my parents, my sister, brother-in-law, nieces, daughter, and grandchildren in my apartment in one space.
You know, I'm always trying to see the good side.
Yes,
It is a blessing to be able to see first still in our life, to be around this many days on this planet and still have
a first
new experiences. That's a blessing.
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
Absolutely.
So good stuff. Good stuff happening down here. Job as well, family as well. Doing my cooking thing, sir.
Yeah.
All
Word on
my
the street.
Aftergate folk know that your boy Al is a grill master who is just now cooking for people's events and cookouts, and they're just calling like, "Yo, Al, I tasted the food at so-and-so's house. I know you don't know me, but can you do it for me for my birthday party?" That's how we doing it in the A.
I'm gonna do a shameless plug. It's gonna be very simple, folk. If you don't know, I highly recommend you inquire about available services with Mr. Glimpf. Only because it's gonna get to the point where the demand and the supply is gonna offset.
For this, since it's such an experience of love, for all my Aftergate folk, what you really want to be down is at one of my barbecues where you ain't hiring me. You are just at my house and we are just breaking bread like so many other my family members have been doing for the last 20, 30 years, like yourself. Yeah, just be blessed to come through and catch some of the brisket, catch some of the chicken, salmon, all of that. But that's enough about us because we got a sister in the room that I'm looking forward to. This is season 2. I was trying to get her season 1, and I finally got her right on time.
Supply and demand,
Right on time. My man, is it okay that I invite the sister into the room?
Absolutely.
I got your blessing.
Long overdue.
Long overdue, but right on time as always. Aftergate community, it is my pleasure to introduce for this episode, Sister Shev. Not even going into all the other stuff because everybody knows Shev.
You got to be pretty acclaimed when they don't even have to know not just your first name, but an abbreviation of your first name, and it's enough said.
Shev. You don't know. Look her up.
Google her.
Hi, guys.
What's up?
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on here. Really, truly a pleasure. I hope the listeners are appreciating the energy, the vibe, because it is always different when there's somebody in the room that we know, that we got love for, that we got respect for, and we are having the chance to learn their story. Because one of the things people don't understand is that we might move and engage with each other in this Colgate world, but a lot of times we don't know the story before Colgate. And so part of what we've been enjoying, me and Jerry, as well as the listeners, is hearing people's stories before Colgate, but then even after Colgate. So looking forward to hearing this story tonight. You ready?
Cool. Yeah, I'm ready. Thank you.
Let's jump on in. So, okay. So obviously y'all can tell we've known each other. We didn't go to school though at the same time. We met after you graduate, and you are an alum that is really serving in the AOC. So I always like to say, for the listeners, where our history begins in this Colgate thing. And to my recollection, this is where I'm meeting Shev. She is now this amazing leader carrying the torch for the Alumni of Color. That sound about right? Am I representing the facts accurately?
Oh, you're talking to me?
I'm
Yeah,
talking to you.
I
I'm
guess
talking to you.
so.
Sounds about right, right? Sounds about right.
Wait,
Yeah, that sounds about
can
right.
you give some context? How far back are we talking now? Like five
When
years, 4 years,
did
7
when
years?
did you
Oh,
start as the AOC? Let's just get that date out there for the record. Well, first, when did you graduate?
so
When did you
I
graduate?
graduated in 2008.
2008.
So I've been pretty active member since '08.
Yes.
And yeah, I think we met.
Well, when did you start serving as an AOC officer?
I think 2012, 2013.
Mm, see?
Around that time period.
So we're looking
Um,
at 10 years now.
oh yeah, we are seasoned.
Seasoned.
We're in it. We're in it. Yeah, I've had the privilege to serve as an officer and president and member and be a part of this beautiful community for quite some time. And as a student, I was also, I would say, heavily involved and engaged in a lot of the programming. And that's how I, got to meet a lot of the folks, as a first year, as a sophomore, as a junior, senior, so forth. So, that's how we build our community, and I'm a product of that, and the relationships and the you know the trust and all of I think the advice and guidance that I've gotten from you all throughout the years kind of said, okay, I want to be able to do the same thing. I want to be able to do that and more. So, yeah, it's been a ride. It's been a journey.
Nice.
To be involved in Colgate, to say, hey, I was a student and never stopped. So since '04, Colgate's had me.
So before we get into our sort of formality of some of the common questions that we have, I'm just a little curious if Alvin would allow me.
I will indulge.
Thank you. You seen, oh, maybe you didn't, but let me ask the question. Did you come into Colgate with an orientation or prior to the Colgate experience or during the Colgate experience that early on you sought an interest in involving yourself and engaging with alumni of color, or was it something that sort of maybe happened accidentally or organically? And I ask because more often than not, most of the discussions we've had, both formally on the podcast and off the podcast with most people in our circle, have all acknowledged that that was one of those pieces that they may have missed, like that understanding of the network, the resource, the mentoring, the guidance, the support that's there. And so there's this period after graduation, never mind, there's not even an awareness while you're an undergrad to understand the dynamic of how powerful a group AOC is. But then you graduated, you've had whatever your experience was, that more often than not, people are disconnecting from Colgate, which includes AOC, versus the other end of the spectrum, which you seem to have eloquently indicated you kind of caught it early. So I'm curious where that came from.
Like, how did I catch it early? The AOC bug.
Was it something that you came into college because maybe you had family members or others really instilling in you, hey, rock with the alumni, get in early with the alumni, or was it something that happened kind of organically?
I think it's both. I think I know we're gonna probably dive into how I got to Colgate in shortly. But coming into Colgate before I jump into it, I knew quite a few folks who went there from my high school. So I went to Poly Prep. We'll jump back in when you
Perfect segue. Perfect segue. Go with it.
So I went to Poly Prep here in Brooklyn girl, here in Brooklyn, and I played basketball. So I played basketball basically my whole life. And I got recruited to go to Colgate, but I knew one of the girls on the basketball team. She was my, I guess you could say, rival school at Horace Mann, and I played against her. She was a junior. She was like, "You definitely got to come to Colgate. You got to come play with me." And then with Poly had you can say a pipeline or just a connection to Colgate through actually an alum. Robert Aberlin. I think he may have done like one of the Vietnam videos or documentaries from Colgate way back when, and he talked about Colgate all the time and being an alum. And I knew it was D1, and that was one thing that was on my list. I knew I had to go D1, and I was pretty good. So Colgate, that was the first year I think the Patriot League was offering athletic scholarships. Backtracking, I think quite like I said, quite a few alum from Poly went to Colgate. So Danny Green, he was a couple years ahead of me. Keith Williams was a senior when I was a first year. Brandon Ramcharan was a junior when I was a freshman. Callie, there was quite a few Poly Prep folks at Colgate at the time. So I already knew a lot about it. They talked about Colgate all the time. When they would come back, and as being at Poly, alumni are so important to our network, being at my being at that type of institution. So I knew the value of being an alum. I knew the value of the connection. I knew the value of network. I knew the value of mentoring. Danny was my mentor when I was in high school, and it just happened that he went to Colgate, and then he continued to be like my big brother throughout our journey. And think about it, 13, 14 years old, going to that high school and then seeing everyone matriculate and kind of go straight to Colgate, and you hear all these wonderful stories. And then I had opportunity to visit. That was, you come to campus on Halloween weekend, and you get to really enjoy it. I actually flew up. They flew me up from New York City to Syracuse, and
nice.
And I had quite a
they wanted to dine you. They wanted to dine you.
Visit, and I loved it. I loved the campus. Poly was a microcosm of Colgate, and as small as Colgate is, Poly was smaller. So my graduating class in high school was like 104.
Could you, Alvin, are you familiar with the Poly Preps and the Horace Manns?
Not at all.
Could you give a little context of which is another part of this transition to Colgate? Well, why was it a micro? Talk about Poly Prep and your private school sector.
Private school sector. So Poly's a private school in New York City. Part of the Ivy League. It's considered an Ivy League in New York City. So you'll it's a private institution, so it definitely costs a lot of money to attend. But again, me being a good student and also all around student athlete all around, I was able to get through Poly and really make the most of my experience. So everything was definitely emphasized on making the most of your experience. And I had the culture shock and the whole concept of assimilation, all of the assimilation, to see where social economic growth. I had seeing that firsthand when I was 13, 14 years old. And when you think about who attend these schools, it's celebrities, kids, it's the rich and famous, the well-known, but also really down to earth people. Like you would never know. And Poly's like the smaller. It is a smaller version of Colgate. We have two ponds. We're in Dyker Heights.
Where I was about to say, where is the school located?
Dyker Heights, right near the Arizona Bridge.
Okay.
It's right across the street from a golf course. So I had a golf course, had full on 2 gyms, track, football field. Something you'd be like, this is in Brooklyn?
That's how I'm thinking, right? Because I'm from Queens. I was born in Brooklyn, and I'm like, I ain't never been on this part of town.
Right.
Unless I was stuck somewhere.
And there's quite a few throughout the city. That's just the one there. So the Horace Manns and the other Riverdale Country School, like these were all a network of private schools if you had the fortune, the academics, and you were a student of color, there was a program called ABC, A Better Chance, which recruited
But
kids
those were,
into.
I thought
But
of those outside of the city area, not
Oh
necessarily.
no, a lot of folks came from Prep for Prep, which
Yep,
is also a
yep.
well-renowned program. ABC,
Mhm.
a lot of scholars gifted programs that would give everyone an opportunity to attend a institution like that. I say that to say because that kind of prepared me for Colgate. I was coming into Colgate with all of this background, being only student of color, and sometimes like you're still a minority, but I'm going from being in Brooklyn, which is, again, New York City is diverse, but also going to a private school where you're seeing that I felt like my class there was pretty diverse when I was at Poly. And
Where'd you grow up? What neighborhood in Brooklyn?
I grew up in Bed-Stuy. So I'm a Bed-Stuy kid.
Okay.
A-Train. Like,
what high school did you go to? I'm sorry. What? No, what high school? Did you go through K through 8 public school, or did you also come up in the private school?
I went through K through 8, Catholic school. So the public school you pay for
Catholic
in New
school.
York.
Yeah. Public school.
That's
Absolutely.
the other option of like. But I went to elementary school, K through 8 through in Crown Heights. So coming from predominantly Black Caribbean school, going to predominantly white institution, which was Poly. Again, it was literally Colgate in New York City.
Yeah.
And then transitioning to Colgate, I didn't have as much of a I guess the challenge of when you're talking about culture, when you're talking about like when you're talking about socioeconomic status, when you're talking about being a student of color on campus and navigating a predominantly white campus. I've done it. I did it for 4 years prior. So it was, it was different, but
would you say that your basketball involvement in many ways was part of that support system that allowed you to move in different lanes in a way that when you're not a student athlete, people who aren't student athletes don't get a chance to move?
Yeah, for me, I mean, even in high school, I played AAU. I was traveling all over the country. I was exposed to a lot at a young age. I had a solid, I would say a solid childhood, I loved every moment of it. And I really learned about taking advantage of opportunities and really learning about growth and how to navigate different spaces. And I think I was exposed to that very early. Even like you think about it, I had a thesis in high school. How many kids could say they had a thesis and had to give a dissertation of sorts to graduate? So the type of the workload, the academics, the being in school from 8 to 6 p.m. every day. That was my schedule. And then leaving home at 6:30. So we were on a routine, early on in our lives. Like I was, 6:30 a.m. I'm hopping on a train to meet the school bus downtown Brooklyn and get on the school bus to my high school. And then I was really prepared and ready for what I was going to experience and face at Colgate. And in some shape or form, things were different, things were new. You also are, you're exposed to a lot of different things. Your freedom, you're not outside of the city. So that was different. And I think, like you said, Jerry, in terms of Colgate and basketball, yes, basketball, I think provided a path, and really to give me that flexibility. And again, I gained all that confidence. I was very much, comfortable with me, comfortable with myself, comfortable with, what I would bring to the table, because I had been in this space for so long. I'm a point guard, so I had to, find my way. And I think organically, yes, I understand the value of alumni, not only from being in my high school, but because I was introduced to you all when I was a first year, and I knew what career services, I knew what that looked like. I knew what it meant to go to my guidance counselor. I knew what it meant to go to office hours, and how to utilize that in some shape or form. And yeah, my struggle, you have your challenges your first couple years at Colgate, but I think a lot of it in terms of me being able to be a student athlete on campus, I definitely was in a lot of different circles. So and again, like, you know, as an athlete on campus, you do have access to, especially if you know how to move. You do have an opportunity to have access to a lot of resources and a lot of folks. And I think my circles were so different. Like I was in so many different circles. I was like, okay, I'm gonna be, because I was also involved in an active student when I was in high school. Like, I'm gonna be involved in CSA. I'm gonna be involved in WeFunk. I'm gonna be involved in AASA. I'm gonna be more than an athlete. I was more than an athlete when I was in high school. I was more than an athlete when I got to Colgate. So my motto was like, I'm more than just a basketball player. I'm more than an athlete. So everything I did, my lens was, I'm gonna be involved, and I'm gonna find out ways that I'm gonna nurture the skills that I have or try to figure it out. And yeah, it took some time, but I wanted to be present. So from the beginning, even though I wasn't at OUS, I was an honorary OUS student. I was aiming with them. We were AOL aiming with them when they were in OUS. So I knew about OUS because, again, I had the big brothers and sisters who did go to high school with me, who told me about OUS. So I had a lot of folks who were there. Janisa, who was my roommate for all 4 years, went to high school. We went to high school together. So,
and she went to OUS and you didn't.
Yeah, she went to OUS and I didn't. I don't know how I didn't get a chance to go to OUS.
I can tell you how.
I don't know how I missed it.
It's numbers.
So I missed the bucket. I missed the weight.
No. You created a space for someone else because you was able to come through your other
different way.
Your other lane. He gave a chance for someone else. So that's dope.
I see.
That's
I see.
a blessing.
And that makes sense now. And I was friends with all the OUS before we got to campus. So we were all aiming before I got there. So I had that community. I had my basketball community, and then I had all these different teams. I would say, like, that I had an opportunity to be in front of and have these conversations early on. So I came to Colgate, no one had my class already. So it was like, perfect. This is a social experiment gone right. And I was like, I love it.
So where'd you live? Where'd you live?
I lived
You said
HRC. I lived in HRC.
All 4 years?
2 years. I took it. So again, like, when I was coming to Colgate, I came on my recruiting visit, and then I came for April visit days. So I was like, I have to come back.
And twice.
I came back twice. But the reason the coach had left Colgate. There was transition. I had option to opt out of coming to Colgate. So I was like, let me go to April visit days. Let me see what this is all about. With the April visit days, met a ton of folks, stayed in HRC. One of those things where it's like, kind of, being in that environment, and how April visit days goes. You get to see the best of the best, and then
is that Subfrosh weekend?
What is
it's
it?
April. We called it Subfrosh weekend.
We called it Subfrosh weekend.
Oh.
I was wondering if it's the same weekend. Okay, go ahead.
No, I went to April visit days, and that's where I met. I stayed in HRC. I knew that's where I wanted to live my my first year, and I knew, like, the environment, the folks, the community, the energy, everything about it said this is where I'm supposed to be. So I applied for HRC when coming in, and then Janice and I were like, hey, we should be roommates, and that was it. And we were in the basement our first year, then we went up to the second floor our sophomore year, and then where did we move? I think we moved down the hill junior year. But yeah, a bunch of us, actually, we were so tight. We rolled, and I'm pretty sure you guys had the same stories. We rolled so deep when we were in HRC. Like, it was family. Like, we looked at each other, ride or die. We were with each other. We would do homework together. We would party together. We do everything together. They would come to all my games. I would go to anybody else's game. If somebody had a party, we would support their party. If somebody had an event or some sort of mission or trip or something they needed to do, we were all there for each other. And that's what I really appreciated about that environment. You got your own bathroom and stuff, but that was cool. But we learned how to live, and I think and we learned it was part of survival at Colgate too. Those cold winters. It was just us being one family. And then you guys came back and visited.
So
it came to HRC. So again, alumni connections in those ways too. Yeah.
So you came up very mature in terms of the academic institutional perspective. You came up exposed because there were people in front of you who kind of gave you a sense of what Colgate like, right? So in many ways, very different from the stories we've heard thus far. Very different from my own experience, like, right? I mean, I have people who've gone off to college, so I kind of knew what that was like, but I don't think I saw Colgate until that April visit. And then when I come up for that summer, still don't really truly understand what Colgate's all about. But my question really is, when you look back at those years, are there things that you like that just kind of stand out as highlights, thing that you're really proud of? Like when you look at those 4 years of a really, really good experience, what kind of sticks out?
I mean, I think it was, again, breaking the mold of that I'm more than an athlete. So I became vice president of WeFunk my junior year. I, volunteered with the Cove. I became a length leader. I just wanted to be a super active member. I was very active in Alana. I probably went to, and I followed the food too. So you can find me at any brown bag. You can find me at any church service. You can find me at Shabbat. You can find me at any holy. You can find me at any event because I was gonna support it, but I was like, oh, I gotta try the good food too. And I think you're saying what stood out. I feel like the fact that I was like, again, I was super involved, but I was an athlete, but I was like super involved. And I think one of the biggest things I did my senior year was we started the homecoming experience. So we did like the homecoming tailgate, combined with like this whole aspect. And we sponsored it through WeFunk and a bunch of we did it like a spring party weekend of the fall, right? So it had entertainment, it had a pep rally. So we did like a homecoming pep rally. I don't know if it's still active, it still exists, or it's active, but we continued that on we kicked it off, like got a bunch of athletes together, got the administration together, and was like, hey, we need to really hype up homecoming. We need to do a homecoming pep rally. So that's one of the things we kind of kicked off, and then we had a bunch of parties and events to kind of get it going, and it brought a lot of alum back. It also brought a lot of our student groups together, and athletes together, like all, and even Greek life. So it combined. It was like the council of everyone on campus really truly coming together and being one for that moment. So that's one of the things that I'm very proud of in terms of what we started there at that time. And then I think, it was just finding, I have a lot of really, really good friends, like my core best friends out of Colgate, or best friends are like from Colgate. A lot of them are from Colgate. And we still, like, just like you and Jerry, we still keep in touch. We still speak every day. Even the relationships I have with you and Jerry, like, and then to be around a Rich Grant or Chris Brown and Diane Ciccone, like I met, I think, Dr. Greg maybe my junior year or something, and I just remember him saying, "You gotta stretch." Colgate forced me to stretch, and that was one of the things that really stood out to me. And I went to all these panels. I went to, just because people were like, "Hey, you should come," or I would just bring HRC with me. Like, we got to go to this event. We got sophomore sophomore connections. We got this. So it was one of those things where I feel like I met Yvonne and Jung might have been my first year or sophomore year. There was the PALS program, so we had a mentor. I think Vaughn Crow was my mentor at the time, or he kind of adopted. I was like, oh, you're gonna be my mentor. And then I had it was just a lot of the programming and Alana and everything that was in place between OUS, like just hopping on their bandwagon sometimes and going to study break. It was very open. Like, I remember Professor Edwards, I remember all those folks who were there who were like, hey, you're more than welcome to come. And when I when I go back to say proud moments, I think, yes, it was bringing the community together. And then the friends that I have and relationships I have from Colgate, I feel like it was, they're unbounding, like never ending. Like I feel like they just keep growing. And as we have it after Gate Talk, it leads to the next relationship. And we all have something in common. In some shape or form, I feel like we're growing together, and AOC is growing. And even though I was forced to step out of my comfort zone years before Colgate, I feel like when I got to Colgate, it was just another level. It just took, there were a lot of levels to it. And I'm proud of just like being able to say, okay, I've been able to level up every time, but embrace those challenges, using the words of, stretching and really appreciating the stories and the journeys behind, like before me, because you guys been there, done that. And also like what I experienced is it's happened before. Like I think history repeats itself, but I think we're moving in a way that and information is so quick right now, and everything's just happening so quickly that I feel like we want to make sure the moments and stories and programs like this need to happen, because then folks can come back and reference the untold stories of Colgate alum. So I that was long-winded, but I felt like I answered, but I just kept going on my
Sherry. What was your major?
My information.
What was your major? What'd you major in?
So I ended up majoring in sociology and anthropology, minoring in education by default, because I had a ton of Professor Palmer classes, and it was like, I guess might as well. Might as well. I guess I have a minor.
Check that box.
Right. And then sociology and anthropology. I love the material. I had loved like the, studying behavior, studying people. Like I feel like that's what I'm a connector, and that's me being able to, when you think about your purpose, I think that's along the lines of my purpose, connecting people. And I feel like that major really had some really profound like the material and the professors I had, like Professor Prysock. I might have taken like 3 serious classes. Like I remember it was the sociology of, I think sociology and economics. I can't remember, but we would keep reading Keeping Up with the Joneses. We were reading Black and White Wealth. Like the fact that I remember that class, and medical sociology, all the things that I was so really, really interested in just fell under so-and. So I was like, oh man, I got to take this class. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, here's a major. And not that everybody, not that everybody at Colgate did so-and, but it was, here's liberal arts. And I knew my teammates. Again, here's the alumni connection. My older teammates, it was like, it didn't matter what you majored in. I mean, Megan Ballard was like my big sister. She majored in religion, and she's a doctor. A lot of my teammates end up, we have a group chat. So again, my circles end up being pretty vast, pretty broad. Like I have, a group chat with my roommates, group chat with my basketball girls, group chat with, basketball guys, group chat, it's just a bunch of things that continue to grow and just, over time we stay in touch. But they're doctors, they're in finance, they're in they're in research, they're just in a bunch of different industries. And I knew it didn't really matter what I majored in. It's just how did I critically think about things? How did I navigate conversations? Just because I'm on a team where alum are coming back, I'm on a team where people are able to share this information. I'm seeing them graduate, and I'm seeing them go on and go to medical school or become a lawyer. And I'm like, all right, well, it's possible. This is the liberal arts. This is that Colgate alumni network that they sold you on when you came in, because that's what it said. Alumni network is
real.
It's funny because I know that was said to me at some point, but that was like Wah, 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 wah. Like that part you were just thinking about. I wasn't thinking that way. I had no idea at 17 what network meant.
Right.
I didn't have poly prep. There was a different orientation as to understanding the magnitude of what's available to you.
Right.
It makes a difference.
And again, opportunity and being. I call it privilege. I had the privilege of being in that environment
Absolutely.
at an early age.
Yep.
So I could have these conversations, and understood what it meant to take a business card. Like I was a sport almost, like I was as far as I could get. Not, I mean, of course, down the line, you're like, now it's organic. How important is that relationship? Well, how important that conversation? How important is this moment? Can you be in the moment? Can you be present? And what, I always, even the way I move in life, is like, I'm not looking for something in return or something from you. And I think I started approaching conversations that way. So when I talked to an alum, didn't look like me. It wasn't about, can I get a job? It was, okay, let me learn more about you. And great, if we keep in touch, perfect. But here, let me learn more about your world. Let me learn more about how you got to where you are. So a lot of the conversations, if you even see the network that I have at Colgate now, being a part of, being in environments where it's Alumni Council or the President's Club and AOC and, being a part of these different networks and communities, it's really like, I always learn about giving. And I feel like I've been, again, being in environments where people give, it's very important, because you don't have to look for anything in return. It just comes back to you. And I feel like I'm blessed in that way. And I feel like a lot of people could, if they understood how that works. I never understood when people say, oh, give, you receive, give, you receive. I'm like, all right, let me figure this out. But now understanding and being in that space and being, I guess, more aware, I totally understand what giving my time means, giving fiscally means, what giving spiritually means, what's giving like really my whole self, and that matters. So like, I'm like, oh, what's my Maya Angelou quotes at the end of my email. It's like, people will never forget what you said, forget what you did, all that good stuff, right? But they'll never forget how they made you feel.
Facts.
So that sticks with me because it's so important. And again, going back to SOAD major, we learn all of that stuff. But now, how do you take the book, that book knowledge, that academic, the institutional knowledge, and now transfer it into real life? And I think I had an opportunity with a lot of the professors I had in SOAN to tie it all together to make it real. And I know I'm talking, but
it's okay. It's okay. Keep talking, because your story is interesting.
Even like I said, I don't want to go abroad. How do I go abroad and play basketball? How do I go abroad? What does that look like? So my freshman year, and this is one of the things I'm like, oh man, my first year, I wish I took advantage of that. I had an opportunity to be in a 300 level women's studies class that was going to New Mexico. My whole basketball team, almost not the whole basketball team, but at least 6 or 7 of those girls were in that class. And I had an opportunity to be in that class. I think that was the first time I let fear kind of get it. I was like, 300 levels, I ended up taking a 300 level sculpture class. And I'm like, oh man, it was amazing. And I actually, through my FSEM professor, who I'm still really close with the kids, all of that stuff. I'm like, man, I had an opportunity to go to New Mexico. And that's one thing I didn't take advantage of my first year, because I think I let fear get in the way of that. So when I had the opportunity again, and it came back around, because it was an extended study. Obviously, I can't go during season. Basketball goes from forever, like as soon as you get there until spring, or March, right. April, right? So you only have a month of, you really can't go abroad during the semester. So I say that because I saw the value, and I saw, again, my teammates, I saw what they were able to experience, but also come back with such culture, come back with such knowledge, come back with a different lens. I was like, oh, I got to do this. So my senior year, I think I'm going down a path that I just want to make sure that I'm tying all the stories, tie everything together. My senior year, I was like, man, I have to go abroad at some point. So Professor Ellen Creeley in the geography department. Remember, never took geography class. I'm a SOAN major, education minor, and I dabbled. I was all over the place. I did one studies. Of course, I came into Colgate. This was the challenge in taking calculus, chemistry, biology, all at the same time. Because I'm thinking high school, like this is how you do it.
Right.
So my first year was crazy. Second year, I got a hang. Junior and senior year, I was killing it, right? So I was like, man, I have to take it. So I don't know how I did it, but I talked my way in and was able to transfer some knowledge of SOAN into, how can I get on this geography trip?
Geography.
It was a trip to Australia.
Wow.
Western Australia. And it was a study of the lost generation Aboriginal communities. And behold to us, Colgate has some of the art, or at least a lot of the art from this community in Kitani and Western Australia, and it's in a picker. So it was donated to us by a woman who owned it, or I don't know if she's an alum, and we own it, and we were giving it back to that community. And that was the first ever trip to Western Australia.
Wow.
I was part of that, and I was like, I have to be a part of it. So I took a 5th course my senior year. No, and I've already graduated. Like, I'm already like, why am I taking this? I took this course. I'm already graduated technically. Like, I did all my coursework. And I say this because, like, I don't know who's listening. It's like,
right. That's why I want you to finish the story. Right.
I'm like, man, I had to take this course because I really need to go abroad. That's one thing that was on my list. Again, another proud moment, I guess. That was on my list that I had to check because I saw my teammates go to New Mexico and they had this experience, and probably, with Professor Wider. And I was like, I have to do something like this. So Professor Creeley had really put together an amazing syllabus, and it was hands-on. Like, we were going to be in the Aboriginal community. We were going to be with the last of the lost generation. And if anybody knows the story of Aboriginals in Western Australia, or in Australia, period, just like the natives in any other country, but Native Americans here, they're stripped of their land, stripped of their rights. They didn't get an apology from the government until 2008, my senior year, an official apology, and they call it Sorry Day. And we were there for that. We were there for all of these milestones and moments in history that can never, I can't trade this for anything. One thing I will say, I was the only person of color on that trip. And it kind of gives me chills because Aboriginal communities, when you speak to them and the elders, they look at them, they consider themselves Black. People call like their idols, Malcolm X.
Really?
Yeah.
Like they a lot of their journey and their story being stolen as kids. That rabbit-proof fence is real.
Wow.
And not being able to reach their families on the other side of that fence. Like, to hear that firsthand from an 80-year-old lost generation. They call them the lost generation because they were stolen from their families, the stolen generation. And put in these I'm trying to think of the word right now, it's escaping me. But not missionary homes or whatever, but stolen by colonizers in some way, and taken and saying, oh, you're gonna learn this European culture, you're gonna learn the European culture, they're stripping them of their native language. Remember, and that's why Aftergate's so important. They didn't have a lot of their language recorded. They didn't have a lot of their history recorded. Yes, there's museums now, but it's not the same. Like, to be amongst them, and I was amongst them for almost 6 weeks in that summer. I left right the day after graduation, or 2 days after graduation, and I was there all summer. Me and another teammate actually signed up for it, so we were there together. But being the only person of color and Black woman on that trip, they embraced me. It was like the biggest warm hug. Like, they would take me in the corner and be like, sister, and they would be like, Wajala, which is white person, right? So they were wary of having white people in their circle, and you learn a lot about their culture, learn about their birthing stories and traditions, but how do they preserve it? And again, like, a lot of it was through the art. So these kids knew how to draw everything. They were taught how to draw, but then once they were amazing. Like they were able to, if you get a chance to go to Picker when you go back up to Colgate, I think we should have some art still there. But they were drawing what they remembered from their families. They were drawing like their environment. So like the art and the sunset in Australia is amazing. The sunrise and sunset. So a lot of their pictures have that. And to be amongst the elders, I think I wouldn't trade that for the world. So that's another proud moment that I think every person or student should go. Whether even if you graduated, you should go abroad or you should travel. And that also triggered a lot of travel bug in me, because I started to appreciate more cultures. When I do go, I have to be with local and native folks, as in like part of the island, a part of the country. You're born and raised here, just because that experience also changed me and
perspective.
Perspective. Everything's perspective. So
it's always nice to travel on someone else's dime, though. That's always...
right. So again, Colgate, I don't know how I did it, but I snuck in that fifth class. That fifth class came in there, got it approved. Colgate covered it.
That's why we wanted you to tell that story, because you never know. A junior might be listening right now and might find a way to take advantage of this.
And you probably wouldn't even find an advisor that would advise you to do it that way. But the beauty is that you made a way, and you still leverage the resources, and Colgate made it possible.
Right, and you find a way. I think there's, again, like Colgate helps you find a way, or you find a way. You have to find a way. So for me, like, it wasn't a choice. I was like, I'm going somewhere, but I'm going. I'm gonna figure it out. And that was on my list, and I checked that off as I guess that moment that you say, other moments that you're really proud of, and that was one of them. And alum, again, now other students, a lot of folks followed after me. My other teammates went after. So they were like, man, it was amazing. So as an alum, I was almost giving that knowledge back, because they
still
saw
are.
me. Yeah,
you're doing it right now.
So that was just one.
Let's take a pause so we can bring in our commercial for our sponsor, and then we're going to come back and finish up this conversation with Shev and learn more about what her life was like after Colgate and after she returned back from Western Australia. We'll be right back. So this episode is sponsored by Hope Murals. Hope Murals is a nonprofit that provides adolescent youth with an interactive experience of creative expression via an urban arts platform that stimulates both mental and physical development. Please visit their website at www.hopemurals.org to learn more and find ways you can support the work they do. Welcome back. This is Al, and we are back in the second half of this Aftergate conversation with the amazing Shev. Before we jump in, hey, don't laugh. Everybody knows Shev. You talked yourself about how you got all these different chats and you got these networks and people before. Listen, everybody knows Shev. Let's make sure we show some love to our sponsor, Hope Murals. Hope Murals, we greatly appreciate what you are doing with our youth and exposing them to urban arts. Show them some love. Check them out at hopemurals.org. Go to the website at Hope Murals. If you want to get on social media, they're all over the place. Check them out. If you want to be a sponsor, hit us up aftergatepodcast@gmail.com. Make sure you show some love to the network, the Defy Life Network, at www.godefylife.com. A lot of great, amazing content. If you're interested in other dope podcasts, go to their podcast hub at defylifepods.com. Now, got that out the way. Shev, as we jump back into this second half of the conversation, I really want to get your thoughts on something that is on my bucket list: attending a carnival on a Caribbean island. And I know that this is something that you've experienced. So for those who have not experienced it, like myself, be the little commercial. Show us what's so beautiful. Talk to us about what's so beautiful about going to a carnival in the Caribbean.
Well, there's carnival all around the world. So that's to start. My family's from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, so I am a proud Caribbean woman. And I would say carnival, like it's, it's very much one of the most freeing. I mean, if you know the history of carnival, it comes from slaves being celebrating and being free. And each island has a journey. Each island has a story. Each carnival has a story. So if you go to Trinidad and Tobago, you'll hear that story. And I think a lot of what makes carnival special is you can be you. You can be free. You can listen to music. You can be joyous. You can be comfortable in your skin. And it's about community. It's about coming together as one. And if you hear soca music, soul calypso, soca music, you would know how joyous it makes people feel. And there's always a story. It's a storytelling, coming from our ancestors, coming from again, back to slavery, back to history, back to our roots. And I feel like you just smile. It's like a big release. And any island you go to, everybody celebrates in a way that celebrates their culture and enhances their culture. So you'll have costumes. Each costume down to the details, to the beads, to the feathers, to down to the steel pan, the music you're listening, the bass in the music, African culture, Indian culture, Latino culture. A lot of the cultures that are all mixed together. What really truly makes the Caribbean. And I feel like we have to take you to one because you represent.
Say less.
You represent. I feel like this is who you have a vibe, and it's about the vibe. It's about the energy. It's really all encompassing. So it's our story. It's not just one. It's not just one person's story. It's our story, and anything from everything leading up to Carnival. There's a whole leeway the whole path that's created to get to that Mardi Gras, get to that moment. Anything from what's happening with Pan, what's happening with the kids, what's happening with the food, the culture, the music, the style, everything's all celebrated. To Juve, where you're paint, you have the paint, you have the powders, you have coming out at dawn to bring it in, coming into the light. And then then you have your different mass days and of course your celebration. And I feel like we as one community, yes, this Caribbean community, but we are, it's in Toronto, it's in New York, Labor Day is next week, big celebration of Caribbean culture and West Indian culture. And then you have Miami. So there's a whole calendar of events. I just have to get you at the right one.
So I've already been to, I guess I've been to Miami. I've also been to Toronto twice, and I've been Memorial Day, and I've also been to the Memorial Day parades here in Atlanta. And I just need to go to the Caribbean. What I honestly,
you've done North America. That's
yes.
That's
but listen, Atlanta's, they come right down Peachtree. And my first time at their parade, like I'm vibing on Peachtree Street, loving the music. I start dancing. Yo, someone gave me the sign like, yo, come on, you can join the parade. Next thing you know, and to your point about how welcoming and embracing people are if you have the right energy. Next thing you know, I really danced and vibed with that truck all the way down Peachtree, all the way into the carnival. And yeah, so I'm like, I need to get to the Caribbean and see what
get you on a marathon. It's a marathon.
It's a marathon.
The
Carnival marathon.
You got to be ready for the fete. 2-3 a day. You got to be ready for.
I hear it is a marathon where you can't go to sleep. Like
you got to pace yourself. Okay. But yeah, it's just honestly, it's a big celebration. Anybody who's ever attended a carnival, or even like again in the Caribbean, whether it's St. Vincent, Barbados, Trinidad, Lucia, Grenada, Jamaica even has a carnival. St. Kitts, Dominica, Virgin Islands, like everyone has Bahamas, everyone's celebrating in some shape or form. And it's not necessarily around an Independence Day or so forth, but it's around it's around really celebrating their community, celebrating culture. And I feel like you would really, I got to twitch you on I may have to take you with me to one, just so you can get the firsthand experience.
Yes.
And yeah, you can't come alone. That's one of the things. Like you could go alone, but it's even better when you have your group.
Right.
When you can go to each party together, when you can go to each, like, which is a fete, when you can go to each fete together, when you can go to each event together and go to the parade together and participate. I go to participate. I go to be a part of the community. I go to embrace it. And I've been playing since before I could walk. So if I'm gonna even sit on the truck, sometimes you gotta go for the ride. But I feel like I want to be in there. So I've been playing since I was little, and my mom still plays. So
plays. What is that? Okay, so I mean going to
participate. You're actually a
you're not a spectator.
You're not a spectator.
You are a captain.
Okay, I've been playing. I got to make sure I get my language right.
You got to play mass. So you're a masquerader.
Oh, I love it.
You're involved in the parade. You're not a spectator.
Thank you.
So yes, you had that's what it's about, and you will be smiling the entire time.
And twisted.
Okay. Write it down.
The drinks, the food, everything will all be in one. Like you will get all inclusive experience.
Love it.
Is there one just in the rankings of Carnival that is like universally known? Like this is the Super Bowl of carnivals. These are good. These are good. Those are okay. And I say that because in Miami, I've interacted with a bunch of folk who are like, yeah, this is this ain't what is. And I'm just like, yo, what is that?
Right.
This is bananas.
This is pretty cool, right?
Right. Now, I can't rank. I won't rank them, but I will tell you what is the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is Trinidad.
Yes.
Super Bowl of Carnival is Trinidad. It always happens before Ash Wednesday. So it's the Monday and Tuesday before Ash Wednesday every year.
Forgive my lack of Catholicism, but when is Ash Wednesday?
Early, mid-February-ish?
Like mid-February, early March. It depends on when it drops, but it's always right before. It's the Monday and Tuesday.
Does that need to be a 2023 mark, Alvin?
Listen, I got a homeboy, and he's Trinidadian, and he's gone probably Will has gone 2 or 3 years, and talk about like regrets of, I should have went on those trips. Like to this day, I really wish I had went on a carnival trip, but trying to be responsible. But that's another subject. But we will put that on the docket of things. It is not too late. It is still have time to do first in our lives.
We have time, and again, like old, young,
whatever. That was the other thing about it, right? Like the beauty and the diversity of people who are actually playing was noticeable to me. Like, this is kind of
everybody from all walks of life, diverse, diverse backgrounds.
Did she slide in a little age implication there? Like we can't hang because it's okay for older folks to come out to do carnival. Was that a little like subliminal?
I didn't hear that.
Oh, okay. I'll just clarify.
I'm gonna say young to old, young old.
I didn't hear that.
OG.
So, OGs, right. It's all good. Talk to us about how you got to be who you are now, right? So walk us from you graduating from Colgate, you go off to the extended study in Australia. What happens after that to who you are now?
All right.
So it takes a village, and I have to give a big shout out to my parents and my family. They are the real MVPs. They are, a big reason and a huge reason for who I am, why I am the way I am, why I move the way I move. They've instilled so many values in me and have sacrificed and really provided me with the opportunities to get where I am today. So I have to thank them and show them so much love while we're on this podcast.
So I graduated in 2008. Obviously, know what time of the year that was and what kind of year that was. Going into the recession, so we knew, hey, this was going to be a tough time to graduate, whether you graduate 08 or 09, whatever it may be. And I actually, again, back to the relationships and the engagement I had being an active student at Colgate, Ilana was opening up with their program coordinator position. I didn't necessarily know, and that's one of the things I think, yes, I was able to navigate, figure out all of these different paths. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do after Colgate. I was still figuring out. Hey, we are still figuring out, right? So I think one thing that, that's one thing when I think back at my Colgate experience, like I didn't have it concrete, like where I wanted to be necessarily. So I applied. Basically, Thomas Crusoe was the director of Alana at the time.
I remember
we had a really good relationship. As again, like super mentor. Again, being a part of all the different programming, being an active member of that community. Interviewed right before I left for Australia. Actually interviewed them Sunday was graduation, interviewed them Monday, left for Australia, I think the Tuesday. And he's like, oh, well, while I was in Australia, he's like, you want to be the program coordinator for Alana? Work with Dean of the College Division. Charlotte Johnson was the head of Dean of the College at the time. So there was a lot of transition, but also a lot of growth and a lot of folks who looked like me in that space at the time. But also a lot of mentorship and leadership who I saw really, really, really dominating, but also supporting that space a lot. So I wanted to be under their tutelage and learn as much as I could. So again, I said yes. I worked at Alana for 2 years. Loved working with students, loved mentoring, loved programming, loved creating opportunities, loved being a resource. It was like just organically, like, here's higher education. I've been working in higher education for 2 years. It actually happened randomly. Again, another one of those organic relationships. A member from the Institute for Recruitment of Teachers, which is called IRT, out of Andover, came to Colgate, to the Alana Cultural Center to interview students for this grad prep program. Of course, in student fashion, no one showed up. I think it was like this most random day. The recruiter was there, and I was like, I'll listen, I'll do the interview and relay the message back to the students. And she's like, you want to apply? And she's like, if you do your master's in higher education, we do a prep program, a grad prep program. We pay your grad application fees. We pay for a lot of it. It's basically IRT is an amazing grad preparation program. Whether you're going to be a professor, go into academia, if you're going into leadership positions, all around obviously encompassing teaching, but what kind of goes into institutions. So all the parts, all the roles within institutions, this program kind of supported. So I applied, and I was like, fine, I'm gonna do it then. And then all of a sudden, I'm in this summer program through Andover, again, another prep school, private school in I think Andover's in Massachusetts, right? So here I am again, just organically going into another opportunity, another pipeline, another community and program that nurtures students of color. And that was what I think one of IRT's missions, obviously, nurturing students of color, prepping them for grad school and life beyond, life after undergrad, right? So yeah, applied, got into NYU, got into Columbia, got into all these other schools, right? And I was like, oh, well, guess I go to grad school. Just happened. But it was, the work behind the scenes and, doing the papers and being a part of that program. Like I went there for a weekend, so I was on the extended program because I couldn't be there for the entire summer. It was like an OUS of grad. And I was like, all right, I can come there for a couple weekends or a weekend or so. And they had that program, knowing that I was working full time at Colgate. And I had a great mentor and advisor in Leslie, I forget her last name. But she still super dope, super cool. And he helped me along with my applications. Again, waived all of those fees that would be expensive for for anyone. It's just, hey, here's grad, and here's how to get scholarships. Here's how to get here's how to navigate the grad school process when you get there. So again, I'm like, okay, well, I'll apply. Colgate wraps up. As a, I'm here as an administrator now. Colgate wraps up. I accept. I wanted to go back to New York. I was like, I haven't lived my adult life in New York City. I want to go back to the city. It was between Columbia and NYU. Columbia was like, well, you got in. And NYU was like, oh, well, we've got this residential, we got this new grad residential life program. So I could be a grad RA, live in the city. I don't know how I got away with it, but I had no duty. But I managed 29 RAs in the biggest residence hall in New York City. I don't know how, like a lot of the things that it was everything, things just happened. And it was, again, another journey that I'm super blessed and grateful for. And I had, amazing leadership, again, like mentors and my supervisors who, brought me along the way. So I worked in res life for 2 years and got my master's in higher education, student administration from NYU. Again, I was like, this is all like my heart saved the world type of like, oh, we got to do all this stuff for the students. And I was still involved. And again, still active at Colgate as an alum. And that at that time. So, and AOC was a big part of Alana and heavy part of Alana. So we had a newsletter, we had all those things, right? So I helped that program and I helped bring on the next coordinator while I was in going to grad school and so forth. And then after, at NYU, I was involved. Like I, was part of a lot of their CMAP, which is their cultural center. I was part of their programs. I was part of, a lot of the res life programs that they had, a lot of, again, exploring the city from a different lens and perspective. Like, you're a tourist in your own city now. So it was able to help my students.
Tourist in your own town. You like that?
And lived in the East Village. The students, came from all different backgrounds. I ended up teaching like a grad course for students who were coming in, international students. So I did that for, I was like, oh, I like teaching, I like mentoring, I like being a resource for people. Again, that connector, coming back full circle. And yeah, I was able to live in a residence hall and be I know I couldn't go to school from I couldn't be an undergrad in New York. These kids worked kids worked really hard. Like every NYU student had a job and they were student. I feel like Colgate, I was like, wow, like Colgate was a dream compared to like at least the load. Like these kids were balancing. Like, again, they're in New York City. Like Colgate, we were again walking freely on Broad Street and not a cure, not necessarily having a cure in the world, but not really having to worry about, you're in New York City.
Safety,
everything actually. Like it's all around you. So growing up in a big city is very different than going to school as an undergrad in a big city. So my Colgate experience was so different than seeing the NYU experience. And I will say, like, just to be around that was a big university. But I was able to navigate it as if it was a smaller institution because, again, I was in different pockets. I was like, oh, I'm going to be with the dean here, and I'm going to be with this professor. I'm going to learn about this professor's story. I'm going to learn as much as I can about res life while I'm here and be present. Travel comes up again, an opportunity comes up again. How do I get to South Africa? So study abroad, a whole summer in South Africa. How can I get on that program? Fly. It is a higher ed class, but of course it's competitive because you're NYU. You're competing with a bunch of other students, and I think people thought I was in law school. People thought I was in Stern. People thought I was in they thought I was in Tisch because I was in all these different networks. I would go to Tisch programs. I would go to Stern programs. I would go to, the law school programs. I was in Gallatin. I was in everywhere, like all these different arms of NYU. And, South Africa. So I knew a couple students who went prior and I was like, I have to go. So, applied, got in, spent the whole summer in South Africa, got to go to Pretoria, Joburg, Durban, Cape Town, and study. but also be amongst different communities, be amongst different tribes, work with students, because it was a higher ed like institutional program. So learn about their higher education system, learn about their culture. And then of course we have from Colgate, we had two of my good friends were from families were from South Africa. So actually one joined us on the trip, met us there, and he was Nelly. I don't know if you know Nelly from yeah, Nelly was joining us. He was like, oh, I'm gonna come. I would be like, oh, I'll ask my professor, can Nelly come on this trip? And his father was actually a very big part of the Soweto in Soweto, the student protest. So his father was well known, and so was she. Like my professor was living in exile for years. So the stories behind it were ridiculous. Got to go to Robben Island and everything like that. So I say that because again, the experiences from Colgate transferring over to NYU, so everything started to have this connectivity and this story behind it. Again, go to South Africa, that happens, graduate from NYU. Like, I want to change the world. I can, so I worked at a nonprofit for a year after that. But I say that because at the company, I've been at the company I am now, Blueprint, for 8 years, over eight and a half years. So my journey throughout that time, I knew while I was in NYU, I knew the owners of the company that I work for now. So they started the company, and he's like, I'm gonna start Blueprint, and again, another organic relationship, another organic story where, hey, I'm in Res Life and I have an opportunity to do a bunch of different gigs. So I'm like, I'm nanny, I'm doing a bunch of stuff, and then it's like, here it comes full circle. On one of my free weekends when I'm doing a paper or whatever it may be, I would watch the owner of my company's son, and he's like, I'm gonna company. He's like, you're really smart, really cool, and here I am 8 years later, ahead of my comms department. But again, I tried different roles, different opportunities, different jobs along the way. Also brought a lot of Colgate folks into that circle. So my company produces live meetings and events, training, internal communications for clients. So we're more experiential, more creative based. Again, I talk to people every day. I have an opportunity to be in front of clients, client facing, doing capabilities presentations, doing budgets, doing all the things that I think, all the skills that I've learned over the years that transfer over to what I'm doing now. And yeah, everything came full circle. Like the relationship I had 10 years ago turned into an opportunity. The meeting I had with the grad IRT representative, because nobody showed up, turned around and became full circle. A travel abroad turned into more experiences after. And then, just relationships. Strong relationships. We said, how did I become the person who I am now? Through all these different experiences, like me being consistent, me being always wanting to grow, always wanting to learn, always appreciating the environments I'm in, always trying to take advantage of the space and the time that I have now, and really, I think, really keeping an open mind, to what could come if I give myself, if I give. So I think those are all the things that have been coming full circle to make me who I am today. And if we're talking, roles I play at Colgate wasn't just, in my life again since 2004. So me not only starting as coming in prior to Colgate, knowing more about Colgate, being an undergrad, and then, playing a role as an admin or being on campus as a faculty admin member. So playing seeing the other side of things, seeing the institution in that way, and then coming on as, AOC officer, and then staying on as an AOC officer throughout the years, and then meeting folks like yourself and meeting folks like other, meeting a ton of different alum. I've seen, got an opportunity to celebrate AOC's 30th, got an opportunity to celebrate, actually AOC's 25th. But, all these years, like, you're starting to think, like, wow, so much time has actually passed by. 25th, their 30th, and now their 35th. So this is how long, I think, 15 years of seeing AOC's growth, but also being a part of a community that's helped shape me, is, just super valuable. Wouldn't trade it for anything. I feel like I'm right now I'm where I'm supposed to be, but I know there's always what's next. There's always the next step. And I think I just got to continue to build upon purpose, stretch. That's what Dr. Greg said. Stretch. I mean, you around the OGs, like, around them all the time, and yeah, that whole idea of taking an alum to breakfast, I did that. I want to hear your story. I want to learn more about you. Actually hanging out with what's interesting is that my circle of alumni friends are not only in my class years or during the time I was in school. They, or at least even close ones, are like in the 90s, 80s, 70s.
Other decades.
Even thinking about Professor Watkins. Professor Watkins, I think his class is 60 something or 59 or whatever. I forget what class here, but you're thinking about and I think, being at Alana during those early years helped shape a lot of what, me speaking, a lot of how I spoke to alum, a lot about how I connected with alum in those early, like, formative years. And since then it's just been, step after step after step. And then, Colgate, they tap in. They know how to reach out. They know how to get the alum. And I stayed heavily active, stayed heavily involved. And I just want to pull other folks into, this magic. Like, it's one of those things where if you know what's in front of you, if you know what potential it has, I think more folks will continue to be involved. More folks will volunteer. More folks will give their time. Will give what they have. And started out with $13, literally a year, and everybody's like, man, how do I join the President's Club? If you're a student, all you have to do is give $13 a year. You're nowadays you're spending
that's a couple of that's a pie of pizza.
Less, I mean, pizza pie is more than that now. But when you think about it, and as soon as you graduate, all I have to give is X, Y, and Z. Everything's in front of us. It's just now, again, like I said, we have all of the information is so available, readily available, that if we wanted to know, we could look it up, or we can ask an alum, or we can ask a friend. I think that's
right there for you.
It's right here. Everything's in front of us. I feel like access, and I access is my whole part of my journey.
So you taught, you did a great job of assessing kind of how you got here and what that the secrets to that. What I'm curious about is, if you were to look back though at the Shev that's coming into college, if you could offer some words of wisdom to that girl that might even made your experience a little better, different, what might those words be? And then also, if you think about the Shev as you're graduating, if you could whisper in her ear, what would be some of the things you would say to the Shev coming into Colgate and to the Shev that was leaving?
Okay. Shev coming into Colgate. I think, again, I said getting over that fear my first year. Just not being afraid to fail. But also, embracing the challenges. And I think if I stretched earlier, it would have been even that much better of an experience. And, like, yes, Colgate wasn't all roses and all that good stuff. I mean, basketball was tough. It wasn't easy. And winters were tough. So it was like, oh man. But those are the things that stand out to me. But I think the relationships in the network and the folks I met along the way, and I think I would have applied myself sooner with the materials that I was digesting. Like how do I make this real? Like and even in the network, how do I have real conversations with my peers? Like make sure you have real conversations with your peers. And I think this generation coming up does that, or they're gonna have to. In like you think about, man, these folks were getting stock tips from their parents, and I didn't know, like even just thinking about it, like we could have had these real conversations up front, like the type of thing when Facebook first came out my first year. How could we use Facebook differently? All this technology is in the last 15 years, 10, 15 years, right? I'm part of that. But like,
imagine, because Colgate's computer lab opened when we were at Colgate. So imagine when you think about the technology now, and when you think about all we did not.
Quick.
So, yeah.
So quick. Things have changed so quickly in such a short period of time that I think I would have told myself, like, hey, expose yourself to different courses. Like maybe I would have took econ. Maybe I would have took I would have been took a graphic design, took computer, took something that took some real hard skills and turned it into the big stuff, big bucks. But I think I would have taken a lot more diverse courses as well. Plus I would have again eliminate that fear of failure. I think that's a barrier for most folks, but I think that's what I would have. Don't be afraid to fail. Be kind to yourself. Like, hey, things happen. Don't be so hard on yourself. Like be at peace with that. Coming in, right? And the real conversations need to be had sooner than later. So I could have had real conversations up front. Who knows? We would have been at the Gate podcast. We would have created the podcast. Like we would have podcast, the platform you're on, we would have had that. We would have created that. Because I was like, man, we were shooting videos and YouTube like videos. We were doing all this prior, but didn't know where to put it. And meanwhile, our peers, we're having some of these conversations, or their parents were having them with them, right? So I think if we really applied ourselves a lot more, yes, it was fun. We had a great time. We loved each other, but how do we really turn these ideas into, reality? And I think with TIA, with the thought into action that they had there, with a lot of these programs that help turn, ideas from inception to, execution to, all of these things that may have not been there when we first started. I felt like that's what I would have, wanted to take advantage of more, or figured out how to do coming in. Going out, again, I think I'm always so used to being on my game, right? So I think it's more or less not being afraid to step out of that routine or that comfort zone. Like it was a lot of things happen organically. Like again, me organically just moving into a role at Colgate because it was comfortable. It was good. It was familiar. I think maybe stepping out of that familiarity and forcing myself to try something different, because again, we're going into trying hard times, recession, all that stuff. And I was like, all right, you're thinking, your mind's rolling. You're like, okay, what's that? But am I going to teach? Am I going to, and then I'm over here having also a skewed lens on corporate. So I'm like, meanwhile, I'm working in, corporate now, like working for corporate clients now. But you're like, man, I had this whole perception or misperception of working in corporate culture. And that's probably why I never took that leap initially. Like, I don't want to work for the man. I don't, that's what you're told over time, right? and what you start to internalize. You know, I'm like, I gotta give. I have all this volunteer. I was having that mindset of like, meanwhile, I was like, man, I could have navigated that time differently if I was not, you know, I had a little bit more courage in that space and during that time, and really wanted to step out of that Colgate bubble. And that's what I think that kept me warm for some time. And just being fully transparent, because honestly, when I think about it, it's like, man, what made me stay and become, stay at Colgate after? And then, yes, I loved working there. I loved working under mentorship with Thomas and Dean Johnson and Keenan Grinnell, all these folks and all these professors, right? But it was familiar. I had made a home. I was comfortable. I made a home there for 4 years. Then I was like, what's 2 more years? The city's right there. Everything was, of course, it's uncomfortable to be in Hamilton as an adult, a young adult, but I'll say, I've done it. But I think telling myself, hey, jump out this box, and try something different. I would have done that. That's what I would have told myself. Try something different. The true definition of stretching, getting uncomfortable, and having those real conversations early on when I was graduating, like, and not being afraid. Hey, it's okay not to know what you want to do, but how do you process the next step? What is the next step? Without creating barriers for yourself. And me, of course, I think even to this day, I think I create limits for that's my challenge to this day, is like, how do I step out of this limit that I've created or this box? Because I'm like, hey, I'm a superstar.
You are.
How can I be more than what I've created for myself? So when I reflect, and now you're asking me these real questions, I'm like, yeah, that's me. I have put everything in line and put all these things lined up and put all the network and the opportunity and the people and all these things around me. Now, how do I step out of that box? Because I created it. I created the circle. I created the box. I created the room.
The support.
I'm at the table. I created the whole thing that I wanted to do. So it's like
faith and fearlessness.
Faith and fearlessness. So yes, I wish. If you're saying not wish, well, I should. I'm working on it, but that's what I needed to do when I was graduating. Faith and fearlessness. So those are those 2 words.
Love it, love it, love it. One last question, Shev. And this is really just an opportunity for you to share and promote anything you would like to the Aftergate community. Is there any initiative, any website, anything you just want to have people listening, you really want them to know, take advantage of? Part of what this is all about is trying to leverage the networks and listeners and give people opportunity to connect.
I feel like Aftergate, man, you guys are killing it. And I feel this is an opportunity for folks to come tell us. So I may need a part 3, because that was my part 2, right? Catching me off guard. I need part 3 is gonna be during one of your barbecues at your house that I would make my way down to Atlanta to.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm writing that on the list. Check.
Please. Hey, all you got to do is let me know, Alvin. I'm on my way to the airport and I'm bringing out the smoker. So that's how easy it is for you. I'm just letting you know.
That's how you kicked it off. You said, I cook for everybody. I have the grill ready.
It's that simple. All you got to do is send a text. I am at LaGuardia on my way to ATL. I'll be there for the weekend. I'm coming through on Saturday. Done.
You said LaGuardia. I'm JFK. But anyway, I'm joking. No, I can't wait that long for part 3 and barbecue. So
there you go.
Yeah, no, I feel like you guys gave me a nice platform and opportunity to tell a little bit about a little bit of my story, a little bit of myself, and help me dive a little bit deeper into, what makes me who what what are some of the elements and parts of me that I think folks may or may not know. And I love sharing, so this is my opportunity to give. And I think as Colgate alum, we're all connected. There's a bloodline that bleeds the maroon. And whether we like it or not, we're tied together, and I feel like we're part of it. Even if you graduated or didn't graduate, or you came to Colgate at some point, I feel like we all have found that community, that connection. There's one person you've connected with, and you didn't leave there, empty-handed. As there is no, I guess there may be gaps in years or gaps in your experiences, and of course I didn't I feel like I could write a quick book after this. The way you had me rolling,
diving in deep
memoirs.
I could write a memoir.
Shev
papers,
memoir. The Shev papers.
Yeah, right. The papers, the chronicles.
So really,
awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share. Thank you for jumping on. Appreciate the love. Appreciate who you are. Appreciate you've been. I mean, honestly, I anticipated getting to know you, and as I'm listening, I'm like, and learning about kind of the early Shev, it really does give me appreciation for what I felt when I'm first meeting you, as I'm reflecting back, and it was this sense that you've been here before. Like there really is this maturity to you, that, and maybe it was the experience coming into Colgate, and so in many ways you were advanced to this thing, and so I felt that early on, and so kudos to all in your past who've helped you become who you are.
Yes.
Beautiful
kudos
story.
I feel like I dropped names, and I was like, oh, maybe I dropped too many names, or didn't drop.
Hey, you didn't drop enough. You didn't drop enough.
I didn't drop enough. But yeah, shout out
to
all the folks who've been such a big part of my life. And yeah, I took like I think big part of it, words that we were talking about, faith, fearlessness, and ownership. Like I owned, took accountability from me. So I feel like if I can leave, those are like last words that I can leave with some undergrad folks, and then even my peers, like my fellow alum, like we have to continue to want better, do better, and be there for each other. Just because who else is gonna, we have to take that first step. Who else is gonna do it? So we got to take that first step, whether for ourselves or each other. Like this was great to be able to chat with you about me. I was like, I don't really talk about me all the time or that much. And it just helped me remember some good stories.
But it goes back to something you said in the very beginning, where we talked about we've gotten away from storytelling, and the technology and the platform allows us to have a modern day version of storytelling that can be passed on generation to generation. And we already know from history that when that story is not told, it gets rewritten in a way that is convenient for others to tell. And so what we want to do is be true to that storytelling of our ancestors and really give thanks, but take on the accountability of sharing the story, and then encouraging and motivating others to continue with their legacy. So I'm super ecstatic that I got to learn a lot about you, because I haven't had as much interaction with you as Alvin has, but I've always gotten third party great vibes from everybody who's ever dealt with Shev. So I'm honored to be a part of it, and keep doing what you're doing. I want to learn more about what your business is about. But that's another conversation at another time. And if you're ever in Miami, I'm down here, so holla, grab a bite. Obviously,
for sure.
You already know about Atlanta.
Sure, for sure. And I guess I could say Shevorne Martin, aka Shev, class of 08, signing off, dropping the mic. Part three coming soon. If I had some horns, you got to give me horns at the end.
We got the effects. We got the effects.
Love it. Love the energy.
Appreciate you staying up. Appreciate you staying up for us.
This has been another episode of Aftergate Season 2. Thanks to our guests. Thanks to all the listeners. We greatly appreciate you. Remember, Aftergate is always powered by the Defy Life Network. Make sure you check out more future of these podcasts coming in the future. Make sure you show us some love. Remember, the Colgate of your day is not the Colgate of today, and it's certainly not the Colgate of the future. Peace, family.
Shh. You hear that? Listen closer. That, my friend, is the deafening sound of focus. It drowns out all the useless noise that can clutter the moment. Naysayers don't exist. Haters? Smaters? The peanut gallery? Who's that? When you in your zone, all that noise and all that buzz is just elevator music. So, enjoy your journey, focus on your goal, and bask in the quiet roar that is progress. Because when it's your time to shoot that shot, spit that verse, or close that deal, the only voice that matters is yours. Defy life.